We're live from New Delhi, watching special broadcast on DD India, India's Voice to the World. I'm Nipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next half an hour. Engine fuel supply was cut just before Ahmedabad Air India jet crash. Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau releases preliminary probe report, says cockpit audio reveals pilot confusion over mid-air fuel cutoff. U.S. State Department starts firing more than 1,350 workers in Trump's shake-up of diplomatic corps. Layoffs affect 1,107 civil services and 246 foreign service workers. India's Maratha military landscapes makes it to the UNESCO World Heritage List. India's 44th property to receive this recognition. Extraordinary network of 12 forts highlights strategic strength. And Wimbledon enters final stage in women's singles. Iga Swiatek of Poland faces Amanda Anisimova of the US today, while in men's singles, Sinner sets up final versus Alcaraz to be played on Sunday. And on to the top story this hour. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has released a preliminary report on the June 12th crash of an Air India Boeing 787 aircraft in Ahmedabad, revealing both the engines shut down within seconds of takeoff. Well, according to the report, the aircraft achieved the maximum recorded airspeed of 180 knots IS at about 080842 UTC, and immediately thereafter, the engine 1 and engine 2 fuel cut-off switches transitioned from run to cut-off position, one after another, with a time gap of 0.1 seconds. Well, the engine N1 and N2 began to decrease from their takeoff values as the fuel supply to the engines was cut off. The report also includes a conversation between the pilots on the fuel controls before the crash. In the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, why did he cut off? To which the second pilot replied that he had not done so. Also, the report acknowledged that the CCTV footage obtained from the airport showed Ram Air Turbine RAT getting deployed during the initial climb immediately after liftoff. No significant bird activity was observed in the vicinity of the flight path. The aircraft started to lose altitude before crossing the airport perimeter wall. Meanwhile, the Air India acknowledged a receipt of the 15-page preliminary report and said it continues to fully cooperate with the AAIB and other authorities. In a post on X, Air India stated, Air India stands in solidarity with the families and those affected by the AI-171 accident. We continue to mourn the loss and are fully committed to providing support during this difficult time. We acknowledge receipt of the preliminary report released by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau today, that is 12th July 2025. Air India is working closely with stakeholders, including regulators. We continue to fully cooperate with the AAIB and other authorities as the investigation progresses. Given the active nature of the investigation, we are unable to comment on specific details and refer all such inquiries to the AAIB. Well, the Air India Flight 171 crashed on June 12th, marks a tragic milestone in Indian aviation history, being the deadliest accident in over 2 decades. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, operating a scheduled Ahmedabad to London Gatwick flight, crashed just 30 seconds after takeoff from Ahmedabad Airport at 13:39 IST. The aircraft, carrying 230 passengers and 12 crew members, lost power and thrust, leading to a catastrophic impact into the hostel block of the BJ Medical College. Well, the crash killed 241 on board, with 1 survivor, and claimed 19 lives on the ground, injuring at least 60 others. This was Air India's first fatal crash since the year 1985 bombing of Flight 182 and the first hull loss of a Boeing 787 since its 2011 debut. The disaster was India's worst since the 1996 Charkhi-Dadri mid-air collision. The crash site saw rapid response from Ahmedabad's fire and emergency services. Authorities recovered the cockpit voice recorder, a key to unraveling the cause. Amidst the tragedy, Air India retired flight numbers AI-171 and AI-172, renaming the route AI-159-160. And for more on the report, we have Meghna joining us on this. Well, Meghna, as we know, the preliminary report is out. It has been released, which says that the engines got shut within 0.1 seconds. Does it raise questions over the plane's processor itself being hacked?
Well, definitely. Now, there are different kind of questions that come out with this preliminary report. Now, was there a malfunction that happened? Was there an issue with the processor? Now, we also see that, as you said, Lipakshi, that both the engines were shut down within seconds after the takeoff. And when we actually see that, the fuel cutoff switches were moved from run to cut off after one another in just 1 second. Now, the report clearly reveals that the fuel supply to the engines was cut off. Now, also, we were telling our viewers that there was a conversation between the pilots where, one pilot asked, why did you cut off? The other says that I didn't. So when the engines did lose power, the ram air turbines. Now, these are, the turbines, which is a kind of a propeller-like device that was also deployed. Now, when we actually see the CCTV footage, so there is a picture which clearly shows that the ram air turbine was deployed for it, so that the flight propels. But despite that, this is also deployed for emergency hydraulic power. But obviously, the flight could not climb altitude, and that is the reason that obviously it crashed. Now, after having all these reasons, there are speculations that can be obviously made from the preliminary report clearly. But it also says that the engine N1 did start a little responding, but then the engine 2 could not respond. So this is clearly just because of fuel cutoff. There is also clear, the engines could not, again start, and then obviously the fuel was cut off, so the engines could not quickly start. And it has been just a few seconds. Then we did see that just a few, a very short distance away from the perimeter of the airport that this aircraft crashed. So clearly, there was hardly any time for for the pilots also to probably see that there is more, the flight could climb some altitude, and then probably the revival of the engines could take place after there is the fuel supply started. So that is also something that can be speculated, but definitely it raises questions. It raises questions on what malfunction that the fuel was cut off to the engine. So this is also one of the very important questions that this preliminary report raises.
Also, several questions being raised, of course, Meghna, but the accident also raised a lot of questions about the safety of the entire aviation industry worldwide.
Definitely, and this is one of the reasons that the Ministry of Civil Aviation also did ask, Air India to actually have probably check through its entire fleet and give a report for that matter as well. But we do also see that this is one of the rarest, probably rare of the rarest accidents that have happened in aviation history. And the report clearly says, I have the report with me, and which clearly says that it happened during the initial climb. So it actually did not give anybody the time, be it the ATC or be it the pilots, be it the other the pilots also, to probably have or have some measures so that this crash could be avoided. So clearly this gives a picture that how there was paucity of time also to react or probably to save the situation. So this clearly is something that when we actually see that this investigation and the forward of this investigation report also clearly reads that the investigation conducted in accordance of the provisions of the above said rules shall be separate from any judicial or administrative proceedings, and this is not to apportion blame or liability. This shall be the prevention of accidents and incidents. So clearly, this report, the purpose of this report is to assure that there are no such future accidents or incidents, in the aviation industry, for that matter. And this report clearly, when we actually see that. It's been a very short time, but because the same day the bureau was there, the accident aviation bureau was there, the DG was there, he had other people come with him. The same day the crash happened, and then obviously all the agencies, the DGCA, other agencies also were roped in to ensure that there is ample, we can say, the ample evidence could be collected so that this investigation could, very fast, the investigation could be fast tracked, and then there can be a quick preliminary report submitted. And that clearly, with this preliminary report being submitted in, record time, clearly we see that shows that how the authorities have been clearly working on the ground to actually see why this crash happened, because obviously we know that a lot of people have lost their lives, and it was a very devastating situation. We were there covering the crash on ground, and we could clearly see the devastation in front of our eyes, and this was something which was the sight was very horrific. So this was something that the authorities had taken at hand, that day, from that day itself, and now we see the preliminary report in front of us.
Right, Meghna, of course, it was the rarest of the rare incidents, and there was a lot of paucity of time. We are also joined by our guest, Mr. N.K. Berry, former regional aviation expert and director, North Air India. Thank you for being here with us, sir, and joining us here. My first question to you, of course, is as we know that the preliminary report clearly puts early focus on the pilot's actions and plane's fuel switch, which is being, laid a lot of stress on. From an engineering and system perspective, how is it even possible for both the engines of the Boeing 787 to shut down within seconds of takeoff? Is that a scenario pilots are trained for?
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and sorry to know all this. I have seen the preliminary report that shows both the fuel start switches were cut off and then on. The pilot also said, you have cut off these switches. He said no. So it means this is a flame out, both flame out, then the procedure to switch on and off with relight. So I think little more they have to go deeply into this report with the FDR. So I think they said it will take time, few months to read all this. But initially, why the switches were cut off and all
Okay.
shown in the report. I think this fuel cutoff switches, they were made of Honeywell company. Boeing has given the bulletins also on these switches, even on 787 aircraft, 900, 737, also 700. So that also I saw. So at this level, one engine, N1 was coming back, but other engine did not give the response.
Right.
So lot of drag and all, that's why the aircraft went down. When there's no power, speed was initially 180 knots. It was quite good. So he climbed up to 600 feet and then no power. So it has to come down only, ma'am.
Right, sir. In fact, the fuel cutoff switches transitioned from run to cutoff within a second of each other, like 0.1 seconds. In your experience, can such a critical change occur due to a technical malfunction, or is it more likely a human error or unintended input?
Yeah, that will come to know only after the further, reading of FDRs, and the CVR has already said. The pilot told that, why did you cut off the fuel switches?
Right.
So he said, no, I have not cut it. So that all ambiguity is there now.
Right, so as you said, the cockpit voice recording reveals that the one pilot questioning while the other cut off the fuel. What does this tell us about the level of situational awareness and communication in the cockpit? Could there have been miscommunication or a system override? If you could tell it from your experience.
Yeah, miscommunication also, error also. there we have to find out this all report from FDR, further readings and all that they will take time. And the other pilot said Mayday, Mayday, Mayday also as per the cockpit voice recorder. So it means dire emergency there. They could not control. Then ram air turbine also on, that can only give you hydraulic and all, so you can control. That is the thing with the air. When the speed keep on going down, the aircraft went down with the full drag. That was the reason.
But sir, what's the significance of the RAT, of the ram air turbine, which is an emergency indicator and power backup, deploying so early after takeoff? What does this suggest about the aircraft's power systems at that very moment?
When at so low level, that can also not work much time, na? That will give some, control of the aileron, elevators, and some electrical and hydraulic system. But speed was also low, RAT also then cannot do anything after that because it dragged the aircraft to the ground, from 600 feet to ground in no time. Total, I think 59 second or 39-second aircraft was in the air.
Right, sir. In fact, Meghna, I would like to know that what has been the response from the Air India and the government authorities after this report?
So there has been a post on X by Air India. What we see is that the post says that it stands in solidarity with the families and those affected by this AI-171 accident, and they continue to mourn the loss and are fully committed to providing support at this difficult time. Now, Air India has also said that they have acknowledged the preliminary report released by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, and it is working closely with stakeholders, including regulators, and they continue to cooperate with AAIB and other authorities for the investigation process. Now, obviously, Lipakshi, this is a preliminary report. So now there will be a final report that will also come. Obviously, this report might take a couple of months as well, because now this is going to be a more detailed investigation into the preliminary findings. So that might take more time. So the post also says that given the active nature of the investigation, Air India is unable to comment on specific details and refer all such inquiries to the AAIB. So clearly, Air India has said that they are cooperating with the investigation. Now, there are also some points that I would like to make here, Labakshi.
Yeah.
When we actually see that the process of the investigation, the report says about the progress of the investigation. Now, where has the investigation progressed till now? There are some pointers that are mentioned in the report. The first being that the wreckage site activities including drone photography, videography have been completed by the investigation authorities, and the wreckage has been actually moved to a secure area near the airport. Now, obviously, I'm in Ahmedabad at the moment, and what we actually see in Ahmedabad, the area of Meghani Nagar, where this flight crashed, that area has still been cordoned. Though the investigation and the forensics teams were on the ground for multiple days after the crash, but still the area has been cordoned and it has been ensured that nobody goes in that area. So we can believe that just because the authorities want to ensure that that there's been no evidence that is left for them to evaluate or investigate, that is one of the reasons that the area has been still cordoned. And it is nobody is allowed to go in that area, because there have been 5 buildings that have been that actually had a lot of we can say that the debris of there is a lot of debris of the buildings that had to actually endure the kind of impact that the aircraft had on it. So there's obviously damage to the buildings there, especially 5 buildings have clearly been damaged. Now, what it also says that first, when the flight crashed, when the flight started to crash, it actually ran through the trees in that area. And after that, it crashed into a building where the tail part of the flight, actually, there's a picture also in the report that is clearly shown where the tail part of the aircraft first struck a building. and remained there. The rest of the part of the aircraft ran into the PJ Medical College mess, which was a hostel where it ran into, and obviously injured a number of people and killed many people on the ground as well. Clearly, and what we also, when the AIB investigation team was on the ground, we also managed to have a view of the entire area. What we also saw that the luggage of most of the people was safe, so it did not undergo that much burns, because obviously the tail part got impacted, and obviously the aircraft broke from its tail part. That is one of the reasons when the aircraft went ahead and caught fire. The tail part did not catch fire because it already fell on the. It was into another building already. So that is also one of the reasons that the investigation clearly mentions about. What also the progress of the investigation, there is another pointer which is written here. Both the engines were retrieved from the wreckage site and quarantined at an hangar in the airport. The components of interest for further examinations have been identified and quarantined. Lipakshi, I've been telling you that how
Right.
the investigation teams and the forensic teams were there on the on the crash site for multiple days. They had been for multiple days trying to ensure that all the evidence has been collected. So this clearly has been stated in the report also, where components of interest, whatever component from the wreckage site, from the crash site, all the wreckage that could be obtained by the investigation agencies have been secured and quarantined, kept for investigation. Fuel samples have been taken from the browsers and tanks used to refuel the aircraft, were tested at the DGCA lab and found satisfactory. So, as the report suggests, that the fuel was clean, and it was so the fuel was clean. So there is nothing that was found on the fuel front which could have led to this kind of the crash which actually happened. Now there are
Right.
also very limited amount of fuel samples could be retrieved from the APU filter of the left wing. The testing of these samples will be done at suitable facility capable of carrying out the test with limited available quantity. Also, the statement of the witnesses and the surviving passengers have been obtained by the investigators. So, Lipakshi, we did also interview the lone survivor. When he was admitted in the hospital, he could very feebly speak to us. He did tell us about the horrific situation that he was into and how he managed to miraculously save his life in this fatal crash. But having said that, all the witnesses in and around of that area, Meghani Nagar area where this crashed, the witnesses have also been questioned. Their accounts have been taken. The lone survivor has also been questioned. Investigation has gone through, and their statements have been recorded and taken into consideration. So the investigators have ensured that there is a statement from them also, the witnesses and the survivor as well. So also complete analysis of postmortem reports of the crew and the passengers are being undertaken to ensure that to corroborate aeromedical findings with engineering appreciation. Now, what we also see is that we had been reporting for a number of days about the DNA sampling that was being carried out of the people who had lost their lives in this air crash, and it was extremely difficult for the authorities, for the forensic science laboratory FSL teams also to find the DNA samples and match with their their relatives. So this is also being taken into account, and there is an aeromedical team also which is going through the postmortem reports of the people who had lost their lives, and the postmortem report which has been given by the civil hospital in Ahmedabad, where all the DNA sampling was being done and the bodies were being handed over to the relatives. So this and investigation is continuing. An investigation team will review and examine additional evidence, records, information that is being sought from the stakeholders. So clearly, the investigation is ongoing, and I would also like to say that this preliminary report, now there are many layers to it. So the fact-finding team, the investigating team, and the authorities will try to dig more and deeper into this initial preliminary report to
Right.
ensure that the final report actually showcases what could have happened or what had happened that day, so that this crash, this fatal crash,
Yes, Meghna.
happened.
Of course, many layers to this report, and we are waiting for the final report. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your time and joining us and giving us all the information. That's all for this special edition of DD India, as Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau released the preliminary probe report. In fact, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurala from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.